better. And I think that's kind of what's frustrating about them at this point, is that it's Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid version, whatever this is, 6.0, 5.0, of them trying to become a top team in the East. And last season they finished 43-30. They lost in the first round of the playoffs. They fired Brett Brown, added Doc Rivers, who I think is a good coach. I do like them adding Doc Rivers. I don't know if you should have let Brett Brown go or not, but I just don't know if they got better. It's really, really hard to tell with this team, because I think the jury's all but out of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons just aren't a compatible duo on this team with what you want to do, and you have to kind of find that identity wherever it may be. But then you also add players like Seth Curry, who is a really good addition, in, kind of that, I don't know if you want to call him a six man or maybe just an off a bench presence, or, a starter on a decent team. I think him, obviously, I did forget to mention Tobias Harris being another player on the team who's one of their key players, but not necessarily that superstar. I just look at this roster and it just seems really weird. And they only have 11 total players on the roster as of now, it looks like, or maybe that they've played. It's just such a strange configuration, and I'm really curious to see if this will ever get better, what Daryl Morey decides to do with this team, because he's traditionally been looked at as somebody who's been a great GM for the Rockets over the past how many years he's been there. And so, if he can put this team in his vision and maybe move one of those pieces. There has been talk throughout this offseason of possibly trading Ben Simmons for somebody like James Harden. There was rumors about him heading there. James Harden, I don't think actually wanted to go to Philadelphia, but maybe you can find another suitor for Ben Simmons and get another really good piece back for him. Maybe that ends up working out. Who knows? That's kind of my big thing with the 76ers, is who knows which direction they're heading, and I just hope to see them doing better eventually, because I like both Simmons and Embiid. I don't think they fit well together, but I think they're great players, and I always have love for the 76ers, being a kind of childhood fan of them with Allen Iverson in that group. So it's just one of those things where we're just going to watch through the season and see what happens, because I don't know how you really form an opinion on them for what's on their roster right now.
Yeah, and I like what you're summing up is just how I felt towards the 76ers. I hear so many people say oh, they have such talent, everything should be working for them, but I'm underwhelmed by them every year. So we'll see if this is finally the ticket for them. Maybe they figured some things out this year and can finally make a postseason run. So,
yep.
So now I guess for me, we will move on to the Boston Celtics, as my friend says they should be appropriately pronounced. Seeing some of the things that they did in the offseason had me concerned. I felt like they were shuffling around some really good players, but I did take the time to sit down and look at their roster, and I feel like they still have a really solid roster despite the big name I think would be getting rid of Enes Kanter to the Trailblazers. Did I just mess that up too?
No, I just think it's I don't know if that was an intentional slight on it being Enes Kanter, the big name, instead of Gordon Hayward.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. I have always wished well to Gordon Hayward, but that was just a dumpster fire, man.
Yeah.
It seems like there was no love lost when your wife says the most thing that she'll miss about your, former city is the police officers, which seemed really odd, but
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Obviously, losing Hayward to Charlotte, another big loss. I don't know. I think it would just be one bad move after another if then they were like, oh yeah, let's give Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum and let's pick up James Harden. Let's just keep on this. Let's keep this train going. But they did pick up some people like Jeff Teague and Tristan Thompson. what are your thoughts? I actually wanted to ask you explicitly if Tristan Thompson was going to make a positive difference for the Celtics.
Tristan Thompson is one of the weird, I don't know, anomalies of the NBA where it seems as if he just fits so well with what the Cavs were trying to do with LeBron and being essentially just a low post kind of guy and doing what they needed to do, get the dirty work done, all that kind of stuff, but has not really worked out since LeBron left and being more of a leader on that team and more of a contributor on all sides of the ball. Who knows with Tristan Thompson? I think if you're going to get Tristan Thompson 15 to 20 minutes a game in certain spots, he'll probably work out well. If you can just get somebody in there that needs to control tempo, get rebounds, kick the ball out, start transition, maybe get offensive rebounds, maybe a couple putbacks. I think that's kind of his game at this point. But if you're looking at him being somebody who's a more of a starter for the team, or a six man, I don't know about that. So he's probably not your perfect addition, but somebody who might be able to add something to the team.
Which at this point they got to be hoping for. I feel like Boston is, again, like we talked about before the podcast, just one of those big markets that there's just a ton of pressure on them. Obviously, a ton of history there for them to win and do well. We'll see. I know I keep saying that, but some of these moves are questionable to me. But I also realize I'm, just another person in this world. I don't have any significant credit to say one way or the other, but we'll see how that develops in Boston. But I don't know. I would still say they're a good team. I would still say they're a playoff team for sure. But I don't think they're a title team.
I would probably agree, and it'll be interesting to see when they actually get Kemba Walker back, because I think he was a really good addition last offseason and somebody that can add obviously a spark to that team. So we'll see. I think Peyton Pritchard was an interesting draft pick. I think he might be able to add something to that team. They have obviously a ton of good young talent, and then obviously, like you talked about, adding somebody who's a veteran guard like Jeff Teague. Maybe that'll contribute well to the team. Who knows? Yeah, we'll just have to see with them as well.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, cool. Let's jump over to another somewhat contender in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek with that because we're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks, who have been the number one team in the East for a couple of years now, but have not actually progressed to being the number one team in the East, with the Raptors 2 years ago progressing to the finals and winning it, and then last year the Miami Heat going there and taking on the Lakers and falling just short. But we're talking about the Bucks now as somebody who obviously needs to take that final step and get to the NBA Finals. And they kind of made some pretty big moves in the offseason to try to achieve that goal by trading basically half their roster for Drew Holiday and some picks and everything. So I think we'll have to see if that ends up being a good trade or not. My initial gut feeling when I saw it was, I don't know. I think they probably gave up a little bit too much. And maybe Drew Holiday isn't the. While I think he probably was the right player for them, really good defensively, a veteran presence, can score, can contribute, basically an all-around solid point guard. And he's definitely a step up from Eric Bledsoe and George Hill, who are two players they basically rotated at point guard last season. So we'll see. I think that losing Robin Lopez is going to be not that big of a deal. Keeping Brook Lopez is the bigger deal. I think he was really good last season. And they added a couple pieces in the draft that I think were really going to work out very well. Jordan Nwora is essentially by adding Jordan Nwora and Sam Merrill, they said, what do we need on this team? We needed a little bit more depth scoring, people who are going to come in and be able to make shots, and they just said, all right, let's add two guys that can do that, and they added them both in the second round, and both have looked pretty good through preseason the first couple games, so I think that's going to end up working out for them. But it's kind of, it's all a mute point of what they've added if they can't end up getting past where they were last season. So, with all that being said, I think that they got slightly better. I just hope they didn't fall into the Mike Conley with the Jazz situation where they gave up too much and now have a kind of an aging guy on a huge contract. We'll see. I think Drew Holiday is still a better player than Conley was when the Jazz added him. But yeah, I still just have this hesitation with the Milwaukee Bucks, and maybe it's that theory of, well, you haven't seen them do it yet, so you still have that hesitation. But I just think that they're not the best team in the East, because of, I don't know. It's hard to put a finger on it. Do you have any kind of a feeling yourself about why the Bucks just are lacking when it comes down to making that final push in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's kind of an anomaly because you would think that I don't know. There were times in the game that even it felt like Giannis should be there, should be the one mopping up and taking care of things and finishing it out, but didn't see that. But like I feel weird saying that as he's like, I mean, pretty obviously one of the best players in the league, if not the best.
Back to
And
back MVP.
right. So like I don't know, man. Like I feel like they should be a lot better than what they are, which is exactly what you're saying. And whether they're actually better this year, like I don't know. And to be fair, I will say there was a lot of things with Milwaukee going on last year, at least as far as like as far as the city and state and everything like that. So
Sure. Yeah. That's something that I failed to mention that probably should be added. Their postseason didn't get off to a great start with everything that was going on in Milwaukee. That's a good point.
yeah, so I hope to see them do better this year. Obviously, I had a lot of faith in the Heat last year. Um, but it was a bit surprising to see them kind of just roll over. So I hope that this year we do see some of that um, kind of clock ticking a little bit. Yes, Giannis did resign, but I think that they got to try and do something to get him a ring. uh,
Yeah.
you can definitely tell just by interviews with him that that's what he's absolutely focused on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you brought up the Heat a minute ago. Want to finish off your 5 picks by talking a little bit more about the Miami Heat, who I will still to this day have no idea how they made it as far as they did, and you called it from the beginning, so again, credit to that. But yeah, what did the Heat do in the offseason to maybe strengthen, to, if not continue to be a title contender, maybe actually get past that?
Yeah, so I was expecting some bigger moves. I know that there were some rumors about them trying to recruit Giannis to leave Milwaukee, or you know even who was the other one? There were some other big names that they were trying to work out, but in the end, they picked up Avery Bradley, Maurice Harkless, and Max Struss again. If you want pronunciation guides, don't come to me. I can't help you. And then they, I believe, re-signed Bam and Goran to some big contracts, which is things that they wanted to do. They also lost Jay Crowder and Solomon Hill. So I don't know if they got significantly better. If they're the same, I do think that there are other teams who are going to be better this year, so I am worried about their postseason hopes. I'll be honest, as much as I loved Miami last year, I kind of, with how many moves happened around the league this year, I was debating of whether talking, about the Raptors getting worse, or, Denver, how exciting they were to watch last year, and potentially what could happen this year for them. But I am not convinced that the Miami Heat got better, but probably stayed about the same, which in that case, maybe they will be, going back to the NBA Finals. But my gut feeling tells me they're going to struggle a little bit more this year.
Here's what I will say about the Heat is that they are obviously a really young team, which is why part of the surprise of them getting to the finals last season, I think, is, basically Jimmy Butler and a lot